provided by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis, based on the most relevant posts on LinkedIn about account-based marketing from calendar weeks 24 and 25. Frennis is a B2B market research company working with enterprises to optimize their campaigns with account and executive insights far beyond AI. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into the account-based marketing trends that have, really been sparking conversations across LinkedIn over the past couple of weeks. ABM is always evolving, right?
It really is. And, it's a crucial time to explore these shifts because, as Sarah Bustani highlighted, even with high ABM adoption rates, a lot of programs are actually still in their pretty early stages.
Right, just getting started.
Exactly. So our goal with this deep dive is really to offer you some practical insights, stuff that helps you move beyond those, initial steps and truly scale your ABM efforts.
That's spot on. And to kick us off, it seems really clear from these discussions that building a strong ABM strategy takes, way more than just a set of tactics.
Yeah.
We're talking about fundamental pillars here. So what are these essential strategic foundations that keep popping up again and again?
Well, a recurring theme, and Thomas Allgaier really emphasized this, is the non-negotiable need for deep sales marketing alignment, like really deep. Plus, customer-centric processes, and of course, having the right specialized skills on the team.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is how Andrei Zinkovich precisely lays this out. He makes it super clear that ABM is not simply account-based ads,
right,
or just, another term for demand gen. He actually outlines 8 core pillars, everything from setting crystal clear ABM goals, like are you driving net new revenue,
yes,
accelerating pipeline, maybe preventing churn, all the way to defining your ideal customer profiles, your ICPs, and setting up robust reporting. It's like building a house. You absolutely need that solid foundation before you start decorating.
That sounds like, a lot to handle, a significant undertaking, and one that needs tons of coordination. How do teams make sure everyone's truly on the same page, avoiding those infamous internal silos?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Michaela Munitsk and Lena Underberg presented a really practical solution. They actually developed a marketing campaign playbook.
A playbook?
Exactly. Designed specifically as a system for collaboration with sales. It's all about setting shared expectations, using a common language, and making sure every single action aligns with the buyer's journey. It's basically a blueprint for working together integrated.
That makes perfect sense, a shared map. And speaking of blueprints, or maybe mental models, I came across an analogy that really clicked for visualizing ABM strategy. It just made it clear in my head.
You must be thinking of Kirsty Mitchell's brilliant tiered cake analogy for ABM. It's a great one.
That's the one.
Yeah, she describes that top tier as 1-to-1. Super hyper-targeted, high effort, almost like, nurturing a new best friend. You can only really do a few of those well.
Right, resource intensive.
Totally. Below that is the 1-to-few tier. A slightly larger group, maybe a handful of accounts, but still highly personalized. And then there's 1-to-many, which is more about targeted marketing, but for similar account cohorts.
Okay.
And the plate, underneath the cake, as she puts it, that's your total addressable market. And the key insight, you don't try to eat the whole plate at once. It forces you to be strategic, right? Allocate your high-effort resources to the accounts that promise the highest lifetime value. Johannes Christofferson, actually echoing Casper, also really emphasized picking targets based on that customer lifetime value and the potential size of the deal.
Yeah.
It all comes back to that surgical focus.
Okay, so if ABM isn't just this simple linear process, like a funnel, what's a better mental model? How are experts thinking about this dynamic, coordinated approach?
That's where Charles Clayton's stage play analogy comes in, and I think it really captures that coordinated, timing-focused energy. He sees ABM not as a funnel, but like a theatrical production. Yeah. Sales is your lead actor. Marketing builds the elaborate set. Operations keeps the timing impeccable, and strategy directs the whole show.
Yeah.
It's all about relevance, coordination, and really precise timing. You cast your accounts intentionally, segmenting by behavior, and then you rehearse together, it clicks.
Like that.
And this also lines up nicely with Vladimir Blagojevich's insights on building a full-funnel B2B marketing approach. He always stresses that these strong foundational elements have to come long before you dive into specific tactics.
Got it. Foundation first.
Exactly. Now let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about the topic that seems to be everywhere in marketing discussions these days.
Yeah.
AI, artificial intelligence.
Can't avoid it.
Right. And when we connect this to the bigger picture of ABM, AI isn't just some buzzword anymore. It's increasingly being positioned as a core enabler, something that helps you achieve truly person-first ABM and build what some are calling signal-native go-to-market motions.
Okay, person-first ABM. Thomas Allgaier mentioned something interesting here, that practitioners observe AI personalizes what gets communicated, but humans steer why. Can you unpack that a bit? What does that human why look like in practice, and how is AI enabling it?
That's a really crucial distinction. It means essentially that while AI can rapidly process vast amounts of data and craft personalized messages at scale, it's the human element, the strategic thinking, that defines the intent behind it all. We're already seeing early adopters getting significant pipeline wins from AI-assisted workflows. Workflows that can quickly surface buyer intent, help craft highly relevant outreach messages, and optimize the timing of those interactions.
So it speeds things up, makes them more relevant?
Precisely. Jeremy Grandeon, for instance, he's a big proponent of embracing this person-first ABM using AI. The idea is to cut through the overwhelming noise of traditional tools. This approach allows for real-time intelligence and lets you take much faster, more precise action. Joyce Lyon and Michael Cleary also championed AI for smarter targeting and deeper insights. They're advocating for a shift, moving away from static campaigns towards more dynamic, signal-driven strategies. So it's really about augmenting human intelligence, right? Letting our strategic minds focus on the why while AI handles the what with, frankly, incredible efficiency.
That sounds incredibly powerful. What about specific tools or integrations? Are there any, interesting new developments helping make these AI-powered workflows more accessible for marketing and sales teams?
Absolutely. Things are moving fast. Robert Dixon shared a really practical example, a custom HubSpot UI extension he developed. It instantly enriches prospect email and mobile data. Yeah, it drastically cuts down BDR prep time because it automatically pulls and verifies data across multiple providers. He called it waterfall enrichment. Basically, it lets your team focus on meaningful engagement instead of spending hours on manual data hunting.
That frees up a lot of time.
Huge amounts.
Yeah.
And Nancy Carlisle Harlan discussed Databook AI. She described it as building intelligent workflows specifically for enterprise marketers. Things like helping align sales, prioritizing key stakeholders, and generating campaigns with pretty impressive speed and precision.
Okay, so AI seems like it can handle a lot of the heavy lifting, making things faster, more efficient. But is there a risk here? A risk of just doing more stuff, without necessarily achieving true strategic impact? Vincent Plassard raised some concerns about ROI from expensive tech.
You've hit on a critical point there. It's a real concern. Vincent Plassard observed that while, a significant 89% of go-to-market leaders believe in ABM's ROI.
Right. They believe.
Many are actually quite disillusioned by, frankly, underwhelming results from their often very expensive tech stacks. He thinks AI could be the reset ABM needed, but, and this is key, he emphasizes focusing on owned signals, using large language models, LLMs, to pinpoint the right accounts, and then leveraging generative AI to scale tailored content without losing that authentic human spark.
So using AI smartly, not just more.
Exactly. And Jan Sarfati echoed this warning. He noted that while AI adoption is high, maybe 64%, only about 36% actually have a clear strategy for it. This often leads to teams just performing AI tasks rather than driving genuine, impactful business outcomes. So it's not just about having the shiny new tools, but knowing precisely how and why you're using them.
That brings us perfectly to the next big theme we saw. Targeting and segmentation. It feels like the LinkedIn conversations consistently emphasize precision over just, sheer volume. Winning teams are clearly narrowing their focus. So what's the consensus? How do you define your ideal target and avoid those common pitfalls?
Yeah, precision is definitely the watchword. Thomas Allgaier reinforced that the winning teams are indeed getting much more surgical. They're narrowing their ideal customer profiles, their ICPs, and their account tiers based on actual business value. And importantly, they're rejecting vanity metrics.
Good.
And Davis Potter issued a strong warning against some common mistakes. Things like just cycling through accounts without real reason, or the classic just ask sales for a wish list that's totally disconnected from marketing data or strategy.
Oh, I've seen that happen.
Right. He stressed the absolute necessity of using both qualitative and quantitative data built collaboratively, really collaboratively with sales and product marketing to define your targets properly.
That makes sense. You need the full picture. Speaking of precision, I was really struck by a point someone made about industry-based segmentation. It kind of challenged my own assumptions about how to best group accounts. What was Nicholas Wanschneider's argument there?
Yes, Nicholas Wanschneider. He made a very compelling case that simply segmenting by industry is often the easy but wrong way, especially if you're selling cross-industry IT or software solutions.
Okay, why wrong?
because the industry label might hide the real need. Instead, he advocates for segmenting by use cases. This means clustering accounts around specific, common problems they face, the actual pains they need to solve. This approach, he argues, naturally leads to deeper, much more relevant messaging because you're speaking directly to their challenges, regardless of what sector they happen to be in.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Focus on the problem, not just the label. What about intent data then? Is third-party data still the dominant force, or is something else emerging as more valuable for really effective targeting?
Debjit Sen offered a great insight here. He said, look, while third-party intent data is fine, maybe even good for initial account selection, that real, meaningful engagement requires first-party intent. These are the signals that tell you who already knows you, who's actively showing interest within your own ecosystem, visiting your site, engaging with your content, things like that.
Data you actually own and can trust more.
Exactly. And George Koudounaris takes this even further. He suggested provocatively that the best intent data source is actually the one created by your own team, by systematically cataloging the market.
Cataloging the market, how does that work?
It means proactively gathering detailed information on your target accounts. Things like their current solutions, their specific pain points, maybe even contract renewal dates, and crucially, getting permission to circle back at the right time. It's more effort, but potentially much higher quality.
Wow, that's proactive.
It is. And Adam Schoenfeld provided a really critical framework too. He stated very clearly, intent, ICP. Intent doesn't automatically mean they're a good fit. He offered a simple 2x2 matrix to help prioritize efforts, warning specifically about the intent QL trap.
The intent QL trap.
Yeah, that's chasing accounts, showing high-intent signals, but are actually a low fit for your product or service. You waste significant resources pursuing leads who might be clicking around, but fundamentally aren't your ideal customer. It leads to terrible ROI.
Okay, so avoid chasing ghosts just because they look interested. So if we pull all of this targeting stuff together, what does this mean for making sure your efforts aren't just a shot in the dark, but a precise, impactful strategy that actually drives revenue?
Maisie Goss put it very strongly, and I think it sums it up well. She said, ICPs need to be narrow enough to prioritize and operational enough to monetize.
Narrow enough to prioritize, operational enough to monetize. I like that.
It's good, right? And this demands complete alignment across the board. Marketing, sales, RevOps, product, even customer success. You need to start with profitability. Align every single motion to that ICP, constantly pressure test your data with human insights, and consciously avoid being led astray by those tempting outlier wins that don't really fit your core strategy.
Yeah.
Prakash Kurupanan also underscored that true ABM, real ABM, is about that strategic segmentation, not just, blasting out mass personalized emails. It's about being surgical, not just loud.
Makes total sense. Surgical, not just loud.
Right. So moving on to how teams are actually engaging with these precisely targeted accounts, LinkedIn discussions are definitely buzzing about evolving lead gen and outreach tactics, moving decisively away from some of the traditional broader methods.
Okay.
Which naturally raises an important question. How are marketers now effectively engaging target accounts? How do you drive real conversations and actually progress deals?
Well, Justin Rowe highlighted LinkedIn's continued power, specifically as an organic channel. He emphasized engaging more, not just posting content into the void, and then strategically amplifying that organic success with thought leader ads.
Right. Build credibility first, then boost.
Exactly. Be present, provide value, and then put money behind what's clearly resonating.
And building on that, Arun Gopalaswamy points out that ABM ads are increasingly seen more as catalysts, maybe conversation starters, but definitely not closers.
Ah, okay.
They're designed to ignite interest, create awareness, but they absolutely require swift human follow-up to actually convert that spark into something real, which ties perfectly into Anna Davydenko's advice on maximizing closed lost programs.
Re-engaging lost deals.
Exactly. She advocates for hyper-targeted ads, even mentioning using tools like Influ2 to target specific individuals by name, combined with really personalized re-engagement and multi-channel blitzes to reignite those past conversations effectively.
That makes a lot of sense. Don't just give up on them. But, I saw something a bit unexpected too. A really compelling case for leveraging OH out-of-home advertising and ABM campaigns, billboards and such. That sounds almost counterintuitive for targeted B2B, doesn't it?
It does at first glance. But Karina Owens laid out a fascinating strategic approach for using OH and ABM. It's not just random billboards. It's about hyper-targeting based on where your ICP lives or works, indexing available ad inventory by account density in that area.
a data-driven OOH.
Precisely. And focusing on a blended customer acquisition cost, or CAC. She gave examples like using those LED trucks parked right outside their hotel during a company's sales kickoff or a big team event specifically for deal acceleration.
Wow, that's bold.
It is. And she emphasized pairing the OH creative with an actual experience, like a targeted gifting campaign arriving around the same time. And crucially, using it to reach those often forgotten stakeholders, maybe procurement, or legal folks who might not be in your typical digital retargeting pools, but still influence the deal.
Reaching the unreachable.
Kind of. And Andreas Piri also provided a concrete 3-layer paid ad strategy for ABM, moving accounts from cold awareness to warm consideration to truly bespoke awareness, stressing things like personalized one-pagers for those really high-intent accounts. It just shows a willingness to think creatively beyond the usual digital channels.
It certainly does. And it also seems like there's this growing recognition that we might be overlooking pretty significant opportunities right under our noses, maybe even within our own existing data, our CRM.
You're absolutely right. Nick Sackett underscored this point really well. He basically said, stop constantly chasing brand new leads and instead leverage the valuable signals in your CRM.
The data you already have.
Exactly. He notes that a significant percentage of contacts in your CRM change jobs every year. And guess what? Many of them are actually interested in buying your solution again in their new roles at new companies.
Ah, the job changers.
Yep. Solutions like Customer Hoff, for instance, help track these job changes automatically and even automate personalized outreach to these, dormant but potentially warm opportunities. It really proves that personalized re-engagement with known contacts often beats chasing cold leads when it comes to generating high-quality pipeline gains. It's about activating existing relationships and that untapped potential sitting right there.
That's smart. Work the assets you have. Okay, finally, let's talk about measuring success in ABM and tackle this concept of the activation gap that keeps coming up. So what does this all mean for actually proving the impact of ABM, making sure all these efforts translate into real, measurable wins?
Well, there's definitely significant shifts underway. We're seeing movement away from the traditional MQL, the marketing qualified lead, towards the MQA, the marketing qualified account. Michael Pennone at G2 discussed this quite a bit. He highlighted that a purely lead-based funnel is fundamentally at odds with an account-based strategy. It often leads to sales wasting time on individual leads from accounts that aren't actually ready.
Right. One interested person doesn't mean the account is ready.
Exactly. MQA, on the other hand, aggregates multiple actions and signals of interest across several contacts within the same target account. This gives you a much better, more holistic indicator of whether that account is truly showing readiness to buy.
That makes much more sense for ABM. Now, speaking of measurement, Amelia Krachinska laid out some critical mistakes teams make, especially around attribution. What should teams be actively avoiding, and what's the right way to think about measuring ABM impact?
Yeah, her points were really sharp. She advises strongly against setting generating leads as a primary ABM goal. That's misaligned from the start. Also, relying solely on contact-level attribution will almost always give you false negatives in an account-based world.
So what should we measure?
The correct approach, she argues, is to measure the percentage of your target accounts that are moving into crucial funnel stages. Are they becoming interested? Are they actively considering? Are they selecting a solution? And crucially, use account-level attribution. Track the deals originating from target accounts that have hit a certain threshold of meaningful engagement, maybe ad impressions or website activity across the buying committee.
Track the account's journey, not just individuals.
Precisely. And Declan Mulkeen, quoting Heather Adkins from KPMG US, even offered a rather provocative new ABM metric to consider. How many doors have you opened? Especially when selling expertise or services, it shifts the focus slightly towards relationship depth and access, not just immediate revenue figures.
Interesting. How many doors? Okay, that concept of an activation gap really resonated when I read about it. What exactly is it, and how are the winning teams actively working to close it?
The activation gap, as Eve Chen highlighted, is that critical point where, okay, you have strong targeting, you see the intent signals, but deals still stall. Why? Because what happens next? The actual sales motion, the follow-up, the orchestration simply isn't aligned or effective.
So the handoff or the next step fails.
Pretty much. Smart go-to-market teams are now moving beyond just identifying intent. They're focusing on actual AI-powered orchestration, really dialing in the motion, the sequencing of steps, and the precise timing that genuinely lands deals and moves them forward. Dan Spearing reinforces this by pointing out that sales and marketing often don't truly know which prospects will actually pay back the customer acquisition cost, the CCAC.
Wow.
Yeah, leading to a potentially staggering 80% of open pipeline being outside the defined ideal customer profile. So having clearly defined and activated ICPs is absolutely key to building an efficient pipeline, achieving shorter sales cycles, and ultimately a lower CAC.
Activate the ICP, don't just define it.
You got it. And Steve Armenti added another critical piece here, noting that a huge untapped revenue potential often lies within your existing customer base. He urged ABX account-based experience programs to focus intensely on identifying and acting on expansion opportunities, often found through analyzing product usage patterns and other customer data signals. Yeah. Don't just focus on net new.
Right. Land and expand is classic ABM too. It sounds like the overarching theme here across all these measurement points is that we need to be much, much smarter about not just what we do in ABM, but precisely how we measure its true impact on the business, tying it directly back to profitability and growth, not just activity metrics.
That's the bottom line, moving from activity to impact.
And that wraps up our deep dive today into account-based marketing. We've explored the critical need for foundational strategy, the transformative role of AI and tech, how to achieve real precision in targeting and segmentation, the evolving landscape of lead gen and outreach, and yeah, all culminating in how we measure performance and close that crucial activation gap for, hopefully, much more effective ABM programs. If you enjoyed this deep dive, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also check out our other editions on field marketing, channel and partner marketing, AI and B2B, MarTech, go-to-market, and social selling.
And that leaves us with maybe an important question for you to consider. When you look at your current ADM efforts, are you truly focused on closing that activation gap? Are you leveraging deep insights and orchestrated action? Or are you perhaps still primarily measuring activity over real impact? Something to think about.
A truly thought-provoking question to consider. Thank you so much for tuning in and diving deep with us today. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.